Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Rev No Shorty. And today we're going to be reviewing New Think issue 1. And I know, I've said already this week that we've got a lot of stuff to review, so why am I going back to something that came out weeks ago? It's actually just because I forgot about it. I had the final order cut off for number 2 turn up, and I'm like, why the heck didn't I get number 1? I decided to get number 1 so I can actually give it a read. And I'm glad I did. It's interesting and maybe problematic a little bit, but it certainly got me thinking, and that's a really good thing for any kind of comic book. We're going to talk about the art and the writing, and then we'll get into a bit more detail. This will have story spoilers in it, so if you want to just experience it clean and then come back later on, that's totally fine, I understand, but we will be discussing the actual story in this one. I think it's important for actually getting a point across. Artwork first, it's Mike Deodato Jr. If you've been watching my videos for all, specifically the ones involving AWA or Upshot, you'll know that I like Deodato Jr.'s artwork. He has a brilliant way of doing kind of weird, grimy kind of texture to things, photorealistic, which isn't necessarily pushed too hard for it. It keeps out of the uncanny valley. He does really interesting page layouts with broken paneling and really nice dead spaces and guttering. Everything I like about comic book artwork, this guy does really effectively. So you know I'm going to be okay with that one. Writing-wise, it does go in a slightly different direction than I'm used to, but in a way that I don't really mind. It's basically an awful lot of just narrative text with hardly any dialogue or no real actual dialogue, really. Some people may have run that, but I actually quite like it in times if it's done effectively. And recently, John, was it Ridley? Is it? He has did all history of the DC universe in the exact same style, and that made it onto my best of the year list when it came out. So I cannot really say that it's not an effective way of storytelling. It just got to be done effectively, and this is done effectively. Now we get into the story, and what we're dealing with here is this idea that screens, the thing you're watching this on, and I'm talking to multiple of at the moment, are actually an alien presence spelled with a K instead of a C. And they came to this planet the tail end of the last century and have now basically become a dominant force on the world. And it's interesting. I'm not really holding anything against that concept. It's a nice way to reevaluate how we look at things, and it gives a chance to think about it in different ways. And that seems to be what this entire comic about. I mean, it's called New Think. It is designed to push the idea that we should think about things in different ways and approach things from different points of views. Not necessarily accurate point of views. This is clearly fantasy, but it might actually force us to look at how we're living our lives and how we want to live our lives. And that's a good thing. I can't argue with that. But it does end up leaving a couple of problems. Number one is to do with some of the artwork. It's not the actual art itself. The art is beautiful, as I've already said, but it is a straight line chronological narrative through the story of the screens coming here and then gradually taking over. The only problem is, at some point, we're talking about the fact that the internet hadn't been invented yet, but somebody is, or at least 2-3 people are using screens which are effectively laptops and tablets. And I just think it could have been done slightly better so you didn't have that kind of little jolt. The other thing is when it comes to the writing, again, brilliant writing, really nice narrative flow, nice cadence to what's going on. Everything kind of works brilliantly. And it does get us to look about how we integrate and use mobile devices and screens. The most common way we think about it in the real world is addiction, which is fairly well known by this point. The people who make the software for these devices basically want you to keep pressing the dopamine button as much as you can because they call that engagement, which effectively means profit. And that's what they want. It's all they want, and they will do it in any way they see fit, using algorithms and, as I say, happy chemical buttons until everyone just keeps doing it because that's basically how they get through the day, and that is what leads to addiction. The other thing they talk about, and this is quite often, is worship, and that is an interesting way of doing it. Like, these are creatures from another world, and all they want is to be worshipped, and they set up holy sites and altars, and you go through rites, and it does have an awful lot of religious iconography around it, including literally the or the forbidden fruit, should I say, going on the cover. The third way they look at it is one that is the slightly problematic one, which is the idea of slavery. And don't get me wrong, yes, everyone who's watched by now knows I'm a massive leftist, and I can talk about slavery and what it means for a very long time, and capitalism and blah, 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 blah. It's a bad thing, by the way, just in case you weren't sure. But there's one specific bit in here which is more done to humanity because of our enslavement. ancillary industries to protect and make people better. This is not accurate to actual slavery in any way, shape, or form. Slaves were worked until they died, and if they were injured and became useless, they were killed or just used to breed. Because instead of worrying about individuals, they just make more of them. It was a terrible industry, and the idea that there was any kind of even ambivalence or positiveness about it, that the slave owners cared about their slaves in that kind of way, is a problematic thing. And even though I don't think anyone's going to read this comic book and take it as an actual allegory for slavery, as I say, we're dealing with fantasy and worship and all that kind of thing, I can't help but feel that there is enough of a narrative out there that people are trying to push that there is still positive aspects of slavery. I mean, literally within school curriculums, this has been pushed. I feel that even like this vague hint of it in here might be enough to make people go, ooh, a bit worrying there. Is that enough to turn people off? I'd hope not, because what we're getting here isn't just a series of comics about that. That is now that series, that issue done with. And the next issue is going to be, I guess, something completely different, completely new artist. And it looks like from the pages we get as a preview in the back of this issue, it looks like we're dealing with a completely different time period. Mainly what this comic book seems to be doing is, as I say, getting us to think about things in new ways. Some of those ways might be problematic and it might force us to look at stuff in an uncomfortable way. And I like the idea that it might make people think, hang on, that is not how slavery worked, and that could be seen as a positive message to be done, but it leaves it open to interpretation, and people can interpret things in negative and positive ways. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to stop me enjoying the rest of it, but it certainly made me think, and I'll probably be paying attention to the rest of them and trying to get a vibe and see what else is going on. It's up to you how you interpret all of that, obviously. But that's it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow with a new review. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.